Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. It's Alex.
And this is your boy Omar.
And this is Monica.
And you guys are watching the second episode of
The Creative Minds Podcast.
Hey, we got it right again. Wow, we even have internal crowd here today watching this live.
We got a live audience.
Guys, we are so excited that you guys are joining us today. We are excited to talk about how creatives live a balanced life, and what better way to do that than bringing our friends Steve and Maribel Dueñas with us today. We're excited to have you guys here today.
We're excited to be here.
We're excited to be here. Thank you for the invite, Omar.
No, for sure.
Truly an honor.
Thank you guys for saying yes. Pastors Steve and Maribel, as I just mentioned, they are pastors of a church called Sin Límites. They've been married, I believe, for about 10 years. 12 years. Yep. Sorry. We got to count those 2 more years.
Oh,
They've been married for 12 years and they
right.
have 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. Can you tell us how old they are?
So our son's going to be 10 this year and our daughter's going to be 8 this year.
That is amazing. Nice. I remember driving out to their house because they were either selling or giving away a changing table. And it seems like it wasn't too long ago. But you're telling me.
Yeah. That she's 8. She's going to be 8.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I forgot about that. That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
But man, look, we're honored to be here, Omar. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate this. What is it? Thursday night, right?
Thursday
night. So man, very quickly, during the week, you got all these days. Everybody hates Mondays, but I have a challenge for somebody. What if it was the last Monday of your life? Right? What if? So I celebrate every day. So man, thank you for being here. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrating this and ending this Thursday with you guys. And I'm excited to be on the show, man. I really am. We caught the first episode. If you haven't seen it, guys, go check it out. It's you, man. You're gonna get some bombs. If you're trying to revolutionize the way you think, you're in the right spot.
This is what we're here for.
That's right.
One more thing to mention, they also own a company called El Gallo Mix.
Yes, we do.
And it includes dulces, enchilados, and micheladas. Did I say
they
that
are
right?
fire. I'm not going to lie.
I'll put the pictures up just for
I have
people
a
that
bag.
don't know.
I have a bag in my pantry right now.
We're not sharing.
Right.
No. Correction. I am not sharing.
She's not sharing.
Right. So let's get into it, Omar. What do you want to? Let's talk about.
Hold on.
Man.
So wait, there's more. Wait.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
There's more.
There's more.
Yeah, you always hear that guy in the background. So we know that they're pastors. We also know that they have a company called El Gallo Mix. What else do you guys do? I think somebody mentioned marriage counseling.
So my father-in-law, the church that we're actually pastoring belonged to my father-in-law. He ran it for 20-something years.
Yeah, almost 3 decades.
Wow.
Almost 30 years. And since he passed, through the pandemic, through COVID, he left us, the church for us to continue his legacy.
Right.
And he also was on the midst of working on a radio station, which he had a fully functioning radio station. I'm talking about the whole everything. He's got everything ready to go. So the whole studio. So we just kind of just walked in there and, we started the podcast. We started doing programs on there. And that's where we're at, man. We're these new pastors. We've only been pastors for going on almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Learning the ins and outs of radio. We know nothing about radio, nothing, how to dial. Like my mother-in-law called us, hey, y'all live and y'all talking about your personal business. Really? Wow. We're live? So 92.9, 92.5.
Wait,
yeah.
you live and learn.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But we've adjusted, man. And
what radio station is it?
92.5 FM, Radio Shalom.
Radio Shalom.
Yeah,
Okay,
Radio
cool.
So it's local, so you can only hear it like 10-mile radius in South Houston, Texas, but it's also online.
Oh, cool.
So it's a nonprofit, right? So the nonprofit radios, you only get 10 miles.
Right.
Yeah.
But we are the only radio station in South Houston.
Nice.
Yeah, we actually went and we saw the mayor of South Houston and was like, hey, man, I need a favor. We're the only radio station in South Houston. Really? And then we caught his attention. Yeah, you can schedule a meeting with him now.
Yeah. They're like, all right, they are
but
important.
for emergency broadcasting systems, hey, you can use us. And
Absolutely.
we wanted to let them know we're the church. Hey, we're a church. We're South Houston. We have a radio station. Here we are.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
And then on top of that, you guys also do marriage counseling, right?
We do.
Yes.
We do.
So I actually went to, before my father passed and he handed us over the church, and of course we prayed about it and we took that responsibility. I had actually gone to school to get a degree in psychology and children and family therapy. So I was a school counselor for 7 years before I was abruptly taken out of that.
Yeah.
She said abruptly.
Yes. So then I was like, man, I remember, when my dad passed and, we prayed about taking the church and we felt like God was guiding us that way. And I felt a little down. I'm like, man, Lord, did I just go to college coach for 6 years for nothing? Like, what happened with that? And I just felt kind of down, and I just felt like the Holy Spirit was like, no, you can continue working for the kingdom of God. And so I told Steve, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to continue counseling, and I'm just going to do it privately now. So the counseling, I started counseling children, which was what I was comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then from there, the moms are like, hey, do you give services to adults? And then they're like, hey, do you give services to couples? And it just kind of grew. Now we're kind of, I think what we're doing the most is marriage counseling.
So and this is how it happened. She was like, hey babe, I'm counseling, because remember it was kids, and then it went, I think, from a kid to the mom, because she loved the service. She saw the results in her child. She was like, I see the results now, I think I need help. So the mom went in there to get help, and she's like, hey, I'm bringing my husband. And she was like, hey, she's bringing the husband, so you got to be there. I'm like, I don't know nothing about counseling. I was like, well, I got to go.
The total package.
And that's how that started, man.
Yeah. And the reason why I did that is because Hispanic culture is, for Hispanic culture, therapy is very taboo still.
Yeah,
it's very like,
sure.
I ain't crazy.
Yeah, no, sure. Y'all know it.
Right.
I don't need therapy.
They associate that with being crazy.
Es porque están locos.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, they
That's what
associate like therapy for like just the crazy people. Like, no, that's not that. That's like the psych ward. That's different. But anyways, so I was just like, if I bring him in, which is a male figure, and then he's also Hispanic, maybe it'll make the husband more comfortable, because marriage counseling only works when both are in agreement and both are open to it. So I said, I think I need you, and I don't really need you to say a lot, because he's like, I don't know what to say. I didn't go to school for this. Like, what am I going to say? And
I'm like, sign up for all this.
I'm like, bro, I don't know.
There.
Listen to her. Like,
I'm like, just sit there and be the male figure. Like, that's all I need you to do. So at the beginning, that's all he would do, is literally just sit there and kind of like nod his head.
In my mind, I was like, I got one move. When she says something for the dude, I'll go.
That's your go-to.
I got one move.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's cool.
Do it, sir.
You got
Do it.
I can
one
attest
move,
to that.
So wait, so we have marriage counseling, we have pastors, we own El Gallo Mix.
Right.
You now own a radio station, Radio Shalom.
Yep.
With that being said, that's a lot of things on your plate. You're also parents of 2 children. How is it that you guys are managing a balanced life? Let's talk about that. That's what everybody wants to know.
She'll say it better than
I'm
me.
going to be honest. At the very beginning, we were doing it completely alone. And it was very, very hard. It was almost all consuming, because it was a lot. That's actually one of the reasons why I decided to leave my counseling job, because it was too much. So I said, if I keep my counseling job, which is my day job, which I loved, guys, I cried. Like, I cried leaving my job.
She cried.
I loved it.
He's like, I had to hear all that.
I cried.
I don't want to go.
I cried.
All right, we have a
singer as well. Right? So like in the first episode, we were singing, and Alex is like, this is what happens when you do a podcast with singers.
That's right.
We didn't know he's a singer, so he's also a pastor and a singer now.
And
Yes.
she's also a worship leader.
Yes,
as well.
I am a
Oh
praise
my
worship
gosh,
leader as
that's
well.
right.
This is what happens when you
ahorita
do
nos vamos a inventar un canto, ¿eh?
I'm just playing. Anyways, so yes, we'll do acapella. Maybe
For sure.
who knows? Anyways, so I had to leave my day job, and at first, when we tried to balance everything, we kind of did it alone. Now, because you asked how is never try to do everything alone.
That's good.
Right?
That's a good point.
Ask for help, but we have a life coach, which happens to be a pastor for 30-something
38 years, New Life in Galveston.
And he's
Pastor David.
yes,
he's our life
shout
coach.
out. But he's a life coach. Like, he's a registered, trained life coach. This is what he does, and he is actually one of the ones that helped us balance and set small goals. So one of the ways we just balanced is set realistic goals, because we're not superheroes. We're never going to be superheroes.
One of the things that Pastor David said, he goes, Steve, what are your goals? And out of those goals, he said, give me 5. Out of those 5 goals, he would say, I don't want you to accomplish all 5. Just try to do 2. After you do 2, then go to the next one. But don't try to do all 5, because you're going to drown yourself. Mm-hmm. Out of those 5, hit 2 and take your time. Once you hit the 2, let's move on to the other ones. Yeah. And they're called obtainable goals.
Yeah.
Don't try to go for unobtainable goals, because you're going to set yourself up to fail. So go for the small ones, because so many small ones will end up making big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been working with Pastor David as far as him as a life coach for you guys?
It's crazy because it hasn't even been that long. I think we started in January.
We actually met him at a sauna.
Yes,
to be honest
we
with
did.
you.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
So
We met him at a
so
sauna.
wild.
Shout out
So, yes.
to Zona Radical.
Shout out to
Well,
Zona
yeah.
Radical.
She's like, just so you know.
Yeah. That relationship
So-
was birthed through sauna.
Yes.
Praise
Nice.
God.
So my
We love
cousin.
to hear testimonies like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yes. So
Absolutely.
my cousin actually has a church in the valley, and he has a podcast too, and he always talks about his life coach. And I'm like, pues, who's this life coach? You
So
know?
wait, are you from the Valley?
No, but I have a whole lot of family
All
from
of
the
the
valley.
families from the valley.
Like from West Laco, everywhere.
And then what's
Puro
his name?
956.
The church's name is the
So-
church's name is Vital.
It's Vital.
Oh,
Vital.
yeah.
Yes,
Vital
I
Church.
contacted
Yeah,
Vital
Charlie Martinez.
Church.
So he's my
So
cousin.
that's her
Oh,
cousin.
cool.
So he always talks about his life coach on his podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, he obviously changed his life
Yeah.
because he's always talking about him. So, man, and then one time he happens to say where he's from, and he says he's from Galveston. And I'm like,
So
he's
close.
45 minutes away. And I'm like, he's so attainable. So then, so I was like, man, one day I'm going to contact him. But you know how that is. One day
Right. Yeah,
never
yeah.
comes.
One day turns into
Two.
3,
6
and
months
then
later.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Exactly. So then we go to Sona, and Pastor Obed takes
We went
us
to the green room. It was at Lidios.
room. Oh,
Lidios.
see, it was at Lidios.
Okay.
Because
so
we
takes
were-
us to the green
Yeah.
room. Yeah, and
We're a part of the prayer and intercession team, so they're trying to host as well, and we met him there, right?
yes. So then we walk in. We're just having our little drinks, coffee or whatever, and then in walks Pastor David Gomez, and I'm like, I scared him.
You're like,
Because
it's him.
you gasped.
Time
The door's
stop.
open.
I went off
The door's
fangirl.
open.
You can hear a pin drop.
I was like, girl, tell us what
heard
you
the
did.
surgeons.
I was like, oh, Pastor David, I know you. And he was like,
You're real.
He had it was like a Snapchat filter,
Yes.
But just came in slow
yes,
motion.
and his I think he
Glitter and
was
gold
with his
fell to
wasn't
one
he there
side.
with his
For
youth
real.
pastor or
Yeah, with
something?
Sammy.
With Sammy, and they both looked at each other like, ¿Y esta loca quieres?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I was like, so I had to explain to him how, because he was like, well, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
You're scaring me. So
You're like, listen,
No, but
stalkers.
So
I was gonna
long
say
story
I've been
short-
following you, Pastor,
Oh, wow.
for a while.
Yeah.
I was like, "Ee, ee."
So long story short, like we exchanged information.
Yeah.
And the next day he was like, "Hey man, I wanted to invite you guys out to lunch over here by the water in Galveston. Y'all come out. I want to pay. Don't worry about it. I want to talk to y'all."
So
Even
eso,
better.
so
Like
eso
that.
me
Yeah, yeah.
sorprendió, because you know how we meet a lot of people and we connect with a lot of people, and
For
they're
sure.
like, hey, you can count on me. But
And then you never see
Bro,
them again.
yeah, and then you
Oh,
never
next
hear,
day.
or like, hey, I'm gonna call you, y luego nunca te hablan,
Yeah.
So when
Yeah,
he
let's do that,
called,
okay.
when he called us, because we didn't even reach out to him, we exchanged information, but he called us, and that just told me, okay,
Everything.
this is real. Like algo está pasando. Maybe this
Right.
is meant to be, or whatever.
And you know what, Maribel? I think that's why he is where he's at.
Exactly.
No, absolutely.
That's why he is a
Man of
life
his word.
coach.
Yes,
You know?
because yes, exactly. So then we got him, and he pretty much showed us how to balance, because he asks questions. That's pretty much all he does. He asks questions, and he makes us. He's like, okay, so what are your goals? What would make you happy? And I'm like, look, I'm not dedicating a lot of time to my kids, and that's really upsetting me. That's stealing my peace. And I said, and he says, if that's stealing your peace, then we must address it. So what days can you spend time with your kids? And again, attainable. So I'm like, well, realistically,
Right.
I said Mondays, maybe Wednesdays, and for sure Saturdays.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. What time? And then I'm like, this time from this time. All right, what are you going to do? What do your kids like to do? And I'm like, they love board games. Okay, so board game. How long does a board game take? About 45 minutes to an hour. All right. So we put it in and we put it on paper. And he's like, this is the times you're going to... And so everything's on paper.
Yeah.
And then how many times you're going to do it? And then also
Yeah.
our marriage. So, okay, your marriage is lacking. Okay, date night. When can you go out on a date? Where are you going to go? How long? And
He's all
he
over.
just...
All over
it
it.
just organizes your schedule. It makes everything so attainable. So yeah.
So
I mean,
I'll say it like
advertising him,
this.
he's awesome.
I'll say it like this, just to sum it up. He's totally unimpressed on our talents.
Yes,
He does
that's
not
true.
care how much money we bring in,
Or who,
and
yeah.
he does not care what connections we have. He sits there and he asks us some of the hardest questions,
Yeah.
and he expects answers.
Yeah.
Con él es más duro. He's harder on him.
Yeah.
He's not.
I mean,
that
just to
hard
put
on
it in a nutshell, that's how it is with him. And he's 100% serious. And he forces you to get on that level and to challenge yourself to do better.
But it's also necessary, right?
Absolutely.
I think sometimes,
Absolutely.
especially with as creatives, as you keep doing more and
Yes.
more things and you get more involved and you start networking with more people, it's so easy to just kind of get stuck in your ego and feel like I already made it, when in reality,
you never arrive.
Absolutely.
you've never arrived. Exactly.
I always say
Lifetime
this.
learners.
I say this
Oh,
a lot at
that's-
church because
said it.
my dad used to say it all the time. He used to say, "You arrive when you die.
Wow.
Yep.
You arrive when you die. That's when you arrive. Nunca llegas. Llegas cuando mueres, porque ya moriste y ya llegaste, right? Pero mientras haya vida, hay tiempo, and there's always somewhere where you can get better. There's always something that can be worked on. There's always something that can be refined. Everything.
I think if you stay with that mindset, man, you have no choice but to move up, because you're staying on that challenging mindset where this is not enough. Me having a radio station, me having a business, me being a father, me being an entrepreneur, me being a husband is not enough. What can I do? What can I add to that list to better my finances? What can I add to the list to better my marriage? And how can I elevate?
Yeah.
What can I do to elevate that? How can I renew my mind, like the Bible says? What do I have to do? For example, I'm going to give a quick example, man. And then we'll move on to the next topics. I know we have a lot. We were in prayer on Monday, right, at our church, and God gave us a word for the next move for us. And what did I do with that word? I didn't just sit on it and say, well, God is going to move. No, I called David, our life coach. I said, hey, look, there's a word. What do I have to do to make this come to pass? We also have mentors. I called my mentors. Hey, a pastor, also mentors, having his own church for over 30 years as well. Wow. I said, Pastor, what do we have to do to make this so I don't fail in this area? What can I do and not leave this word stagnant? What do I have to do? How can I help myself? What do I have to do? So those are the kind of things that we do to push ourselves to get to where we need to get to, because we know if we do it on our own or if we sit on it, it's just going to sit there and it's going to wither away and it's going to go away.
Right.
Just like that idea that you have. You know what? That $1 million idea that never got birthed because we don't move on it.
Right.
It stays there. And what happens when something stays there and you don't water that plant, it's going to die.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Kids get in the way.
That's
Life
good.
gets in the way.
I was listening to, and although I've heard him say this before, I mean, even though this just happened this Monday, but what I think and I'm talking to him like if I don't know if he's my husband, but still, I think what's gonna
you can touch, do whatever you want, baby.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Guys, keep it clean.
Apaga
So
la
please wash your
cámara.
hands first. Amen.
Children watch.
I know, right? Cover the
We're going to put like a big old
18 and over all of a sudden.
Yeah.
No, what I was going to say is what's going to make that, that vision or that, prophetic message that the Holy Spirit birthed inside of you and told you what's going to happen in the next season is your willingness to realize I don't have it all figured out. And just because God released this word to my life doesn't mean that it's going to come true. I must
Absolutely.
align, and I must do
Absolutely.
and move, right? So that's what's going to give you the success. I mean, us, because estoy casada. Pero I'm just saying, so sometimes, like, for example, this podcast, it was birthed in somebody's mind, right? It was birthed in somebody's heart. But like y'all said on the first podcast, like, I don't really know cómo hacer un podcast, So what do? You reach out to people that already have a successful podcast. And how did you do it? And what do we need to buy? And, whatever. So it's just the thing, that realizing when something is birthed inside of you, realizing that you don't know it all and that you can always reach out.
And I'm going to say this to the people listening. Never let somebody's success intimidate you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Let it inspire you.
Absolutely.
Let somebody's success inspire you. If you're broke and you need money, stop talking to the broke person. Talk to somebody who's got some money.
Yes.
If your marriage is failing, talk to somebody who's been married for 30 years and not had 5 divorces. See, it's not about going to God, it's how you respond. How do you respond to failure? Right? How do you respond when you're intimidated? It's all about the response. I think God cares more about your response than you thinking how powerful He is.
Right, and that's one of the things that I've always been like spoken to about.
Yeah.
When I meet people that I know have been doing this way longer than I have been just in the game longer, right? And I've seen that they're successful. I've seen that they're doing great. Man, I ask 101 questions.
Yeah, ¿cómo le hiciste?
I get annoying. I'm talking about, hey, bro, before I do this, I just wanted to give you a call because I wanted to know what were your thoughts on this.
Yeah,
and I've literally had friends tell me like, hey, I'm not going to lie. When I first met you, I was like, this guy asks so many questions.
Yeah.
And it's annoying. And then he goes, and then I meet somebody else that's kind of doing the same thing you're doing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, Omar would have asked me a question by now.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Like they started comparing
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah,
like now they're
yeah.
like, man, that person is obviously not as interested as Omar is, or as I am. Like they don't have that same hustle, that same passion,
Yeah.
that same love for what they're trying to reach and accomplish.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a big thing, right? Like if
Yeah,
you don't know,
bro. Yeah, you
gotta
open
seek
something
it.
else up in that person and saying, man, you open up their value system.
absolutely,
Right? You
I wanna,
crank up.
I want to mention something that could possibly happen because sometimes people's egos get in the way. And if you speak to someone who doesn't want to offer any help, doesn't want to give advice, or
Yeah.
doesn't, sorry, I just realized I was just rubbing my
She's
foot all
playing
up on her
footsie.
leg.
I'm like,
my
okay.
gosh.
Obed, help. Ayúdame.
Pastor, what's going on back here?
But what I wanted to say is don't stop.
Yes.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
Search for someone who's going to give you those answers. And that's not to say that we shouldn't do our own investigation. No.
Right.
Right.
What I'm saying is I believe that God has placed people in our lives to
Yes.
help us
Absolutely.
reach certain
and
goals.
that's actually leading us into like the next question
Okay.
that we were going to have for you guys. So we understand you guys found a life coach that has really kind of just put things into perspective
Absolutely.
on how to schedule things, how to manage things, right? But the other thing was like, other than the life coach, what other people have been a huge influence for you guys that have really said like, man, this person gave me a lot of time when I was trying to learn about having my own business, or this person really spent a lot of time with me when I was trying to figure this whole pastoral thing out. 'Cause
Yes.
you guys said you've only been pastoring for 2 years, right?
Yeah, going on 2 years.
You know,
Year
and
8
even like,
months.
even for you, where you were saying, man, how did you get into the counseling thing? Because obviously it wasn't something that
Right.
you really signed up for. It just fell on your lap because
Yeah,
it's
man.
you're the plus one,
Yeah.
you know? So it's just like,
Yeah.
how is it that these people that you might have reached out to or that have really
So-
just been a blessing in that area?
On the counseling thing, for me, to be honest with you, what helped me is giving people the wrong advice. Telling people,
I was like,
honestly,
please
honestly,
go into detail and just
honestly.
know people
Right,
are
let's
watching.
elaborate.
honestly, because my failures is what made me seeing myself fail and giving people wrong advice, and her having to correct me is what challenged me to give the right things and ask the right questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of me trying to be trigger happy and ask all these questions. For example, let's put a scenario.
His form of therapy is him doing most of the talking and them just listening. I'm like, mi amor, tiene que
Yeah.
ser del otro lado. Like,
Like,
they have to talk and
Yeah.
you
We
have to listen.
Giving the wrong answers, the wrong responses,
Yeah.
and having people turn away, which makes me feel like, man, what did I do wrong? When that started happening, I was like, okay, my way ain't working. Steve's way is not working. So what can I do differently?
Right.
So I had to reverse the roles and let them speak, and then me be slow to speak and quick to listen, right? Instead of me doing it the other way around. So once I started, you can only fail so much until you get it right.
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 sure, for
Because if winning was easy, everybody would be winning.
That's right.
Right. Right. If winning was easy, it wouldn't be a challenge. You know, like the boxer, he boxes because he wants to win. If he would win every round, what would be the point in boxing?
Right.
Right.
Just
So
boring.
for me, it was a lot of trial and error and failure. Failure is what's gained me the knowledge I have now to be able to help men and restore them and see them happy with their families and going and doing life again. So for me, it's failures.
But to answer your question, one of the things that we realized, so before we became pastors, we already had our business probably 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because we started it during the pandemic. So, probably 2 years. On the business side of it, that was hard because we started during the pandemic. Nobody was talking to nobody.
Right.
So
Everybody was closed.
We kind of just had to
You're right.
figure it
Shut
out.
down.
It was a lot of trial and error.
A lot.
But the thing is that you learn how to survive when you're literally sink or swim. So we
Yeah.
were in a sink or swim situation when El Gallo Mix was birthed. As y'all know, a lot of people were losing their jobs. And although my husband was one of the last people to lose their
'Cause I
jobs.
thought I was essential.
Because, he almost thought he was
He had
essential.
to bring up that word,
I
right?
thought I was
I totally
essential.
forgot about
As
it
soon
until
as you
right
said
now.
that word, bro, I had like the nostalgic moment, like boom, I
Yes,
flew back
2020.
into 2020.
That
Yeah.
was my word,
He
bro.
almost
You know I'm
thought he was
essential, right?
essential until he found out
Hey,
he wasn't.
Go to the corner store. I need this water. You know I'm essential.
What
Right? Pumping gas.
I
I'm
work at
essential.
the city of Houston, so I would literally wake up every morning and like walk around my house. I'd go to my mom's house. And, hey, ¿cómo estás? I'm doing great. You know, it feels great to be essential.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I worked at it in a
Exactly.
school, so I was essential too. So I was at home, like chilling, getting paid, you know, like, yeah. So I get it. But you know, so he got laid off. Yeah, I think like almost
Toward
going
the end.
into May.
Wow.
So he was able to work March, April, and then when we got to May, he was laid off, and I mean, he worked in the chemical plants. So everybody that works in chemical plants know that that's a really good paying job.
Oh, absolutely.
So we were so used to living a certain lifestyle. He gets laid off. I work as a counselor at a school that's a government job that doesn't pay that well. Right. So I was like, how am I going to pay all of these bills? I told him, there's no way. There's no way I can pay all of these bills, like all of this stuff with my paycheck. So of course he was going to get, you know, unemployment. I didn't think it was going to be enough. So I was like, you know what? At that point, he was selling micheladas at work as a side gig.
A hobby.
Like a little, you know, like
for
little
fun.
extra
Friday.
money.
Yeah,
So
it's Friday. We want to go out to eat. Man, I feel like eating steak tonight. Invite your mom, invite everybody. I'm going to sell some micheladas. I make $300. I pay for everybody.
yeah, so it was just like a little extra money.
That's a
So-
nice side hustle.
A very nice side
300 a
hustle.
week just on a one day.
And it all started because he's always been a michelada fan.
Loved
Okay.
it.
And he was spending
that
a
one,
lot
yeah,
of
that one.
money
Yep.
buying michelada from other people. And I'm like, bro, you know the ingredients to this stuff is pretty simple. Like whip it up at home and save us some
You're
money.
like, you're not gonna be
Yeah.
spending my money like
like
that.
no, you know, like
She-
we
Not my
got
essential
to-
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like,
Listen,
I'm the
you're
head of
laid
the
off.
household now.
Hey, she's like, you're laid off. This
Yeah.
is my money now. We're not doing micheladas like
Yeah.
that.
No, let's
Bro,
make it at home.
It took a lot of trial and error making those
did,
until
actually.
making it. But to be honest with all honest truth, she came up with the recipe.
Yeah.
She did.
Nice.
She came up with the recipe. She said, "Add this, take that off."
She's
add
got
this,
family
and
from the
bro,
956,
it
bro.
was-
That's a given.
Exacto.
It's part of the
Exactly.
recipe.
El dulce enchilado también es mi receta, por los que no
It
sabían.
is. The
But-
dulces is her idea and her recipe as well.
Nice.
Just so you know. Just so you
Yeah,
know.
it is.
Nice.
Anyway,
It's
so
delicious.
so then
Yeah.
I told him like whip it up at home. Like you're spending way too much money and we don't have that money. So he started whipping it at home and he was selling it. It was people were liking it. So then when he got laid off and all of that, I'm like, this little side hustle is gonna turn into your job,
Right.
because
I was like, what?
it's broke.
She said, you're working.
Yes. So then, of course, everybody got shut down. So our neighbors found out. And then it was literally word of mouth. I mean, one of our busiest seasons was really in our garage. Our neighbors
Yeah.
would come get from us, and then they
But-
would tell other people, and then they would tell other people.
I think we had like 8 neighbors, and then I just put it on the neighborhood app.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was
see.
done after
And
the
it started
neighborhood
blowing
app.
up.
It
Yeah.
started blowing
Bro.
up. So it was so busy. And then we got like somebody called us from Alabama and said, I want
to
to
be a
buy.
vendor. I want to sell it over here.
I want to buy. I want to be
Wow.
a vendor.
Yeah. So they're
Yes.
like, I went to
It
a
was just
family
crazy.
gathering. I'm
It
laid
was
off.
crazy.
We went to Houston, and they had this michelada mix that I've never tasted before, man. And I think, what are the prices on them? I started telling him. He started doing that. Let me call you back. Hey, man, you think if I sell them for like this much, they'll sell? I don't know. I mean, here I sell them for this much. But man, where I'm from up north, there's nothing like this, and people would pay good money for this. I'm gonna try it. So he took a case.
Wow.
And he sold it for like double. And he said in a week he sold out. He said, bro, I sold everything. Can I go back and pick up 5 cases? Okay. And then we got another guy from Georgia. Hey man, I want to pick up 5 cases because my buddy Julio over here picked up 5 cases. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had vendors out of town now. To this day, we still have some in Austin, you know, that they drive over here and they
Yeah.
pick up michelada by the case and they take it over there and they sell it.
For sure.
And so our garage was a revolving door, man. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday after church, we had people waiting. There
Our
was a
neighbor,
line.
like our really close neighbors, they were like, what are y'all selling in here?
Wow.
The
I was
guy
like,
from
they're
the,
going to think we're from like Breaking Bad or something.
the guy from, I remember one time the guy from the HOA,
It's michelada mix.
one of the dudes from the HOA come in, he came over like, hey man, like what's going on?
What's really behind
I
the
gave him a jar.
micheladas?
Cooking
I gave
in
him.
here.
I gave him a jar. He took off.
Never came back again?
Thank you. Oh, he came back for another jar, but he wanted that. He wanted
He
that
came
free
back
jar.
for a
First
jar.
he came to
He
complain,
wanted
then
that
he was
free
like, nah,
jar, and I see nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because you got to think there's people that are coming in and out,
Of course.
in and out. So,
Causing a lot of
but
traffic.
man, we
people
and you got to
lifting.
think it's the pandemic. Everything shut down, and what people were doing, honestly, is
that's
that
right.
they were just partying at their houses, and they'd make their own micheladas at their house, and they
Yeah.
put it away for later because it couldn't go nowhere.
Right.
Right.
I can't go buy a michelada anywhere, so I'm gonna have to do it in my house. I'm gonna go hit up my neighbor.
Yeah.
And then their neighbor hit up the cousin. Hey man, I'm gonna go to your neighbor. I'm gonna go to your house and hang out. Is your buddy still selling the micheladas?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they they'd pick up, and that's how I got. And it was summertime, so everybody wanted it.
So did you guys start off with the micheladas first,
Yes.
and then move
So
into
we
the
started with the
candies?
michelada first, but michelada is a seasonal drink. Okay,
Right.
it doesn't really sell in the winter. So then our sales crashed, and we're like,
Yeah.
okay, what do we do? So at that time, there was a lot of pop-ups. Remember, pop-ups
Yeah.
were birthed and
Pop-up
all of
markets.
that. So we
That
were
started becoming
actually
a thing.
selling somebody else's dulce enchilado along with our
They were selling
micheladas.
someone else's.
So then when I tasted it, I'm like, man, I can make a better recipe. So I was like,
And that
studying.
she did.
What the-
Mm-hmm.
So I created a El Gallo mix candy. And that's how that. So now, ironically, El Gallo mix candy is the breadwinner for
Yeah,
us.
it's
Wow.
number one right now.
Yeah. So that's really what
Well, I
makes
feel like it
us the
fits
money.
everybody else, right? Like it's suitable for everybody.
Yes.
Right.
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 Because it's what is it called? Shelf stable. It's shelf
Shelf life.
stable. It's
Yeah.
Shelf
so
life.
the michelada has to stay cold.
Right.
So a lot of but the candy we can ship it and it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
So
Easier
that's
to
how.
move, easier
Mm-hmm.
to send out for sure.
Yeah. So all of it, we were whipping up everything ourselves at our home. I mean, so for many months, for a whole year actually, we were doing all of it. We were shipping, we were creating the candy, we
We're
were
making
labeling,
it,
we were
labeling
packaging it. I mean, it was a lot.
And then, so long story short, I get a call from somebody, a buddy of mine who owns a taco truck, and he goes, "Hey man, I'm actually gonna go inside the deli and work my tacos in this store." And I was telling the guy about your candies and your mix, man, and actually about your michelada mix. And he said he's looking for somebody because he hears it's a thing now. Go talk to him. So I'll talk to the guy. He's like, "Oh man, it's got to stay cold. I don't know about all this, man. Talk to my boss." So I'll talk to the boss, and just the boss is like, "Hey man, you the dude that sells the micheladas? Man, I got like 2 or 3 of my buddies who bought from you, and I actually tasted it. It's really good. Look, I have 7 stores. Do you mind putting it in my stores?" And I was like, "What?"
Wow, let's
Just like
go.
that. Just like
He was like, "Yeah, I mean, I think we can."
I was
do
on
that.
we were on vacation at Florida. We're in Destin, and I was like,
Wow.
we're like, oh my gosh.
wow.
Yeah, it was so cool.
At the time, we didn't know nothing about permits, health
Yeah.
inspections, nothing. So of course they tried to
Todo
shut us
fue
down.
trial and error. All of it was trial and error.
Absolutely.
As far as the business goes, we learned the hard way just because we didn't really know anybody that had that type of business, a
Right.
food business, So it was just trial and error. At first, he started knocking on doors as
Yeah.
far as gas stations. Will you sell my
You want my
product in your
can- you want
store?
this?
Will you sell my product? No, too much money. No.
No,
And he
no,
got
no.
rejected so many times
did.
until we just had our big breakthrough.
Yeah.
And then we found out, and then there's like, hey, the city of Houston shut down your product. Do you have a license? We're like, no, we didn't know we
license?
needed
I
one.
can drive. Driver license.
I got
Yeah,
that
I
license.
got my driver's license. Why?
Yeah.
It's
Do you want a
Texas
copy of
issued.
it? Yeah.
So we
then-
got our food
so
manufacturer
we got a
license.
food manufacturing
We're back on the
license,
shelves.
and we're
Nice.
back on the shelf, and nutrition facts, y que esto y que lo otro. So all of it, as far as the business goes, was literally trial and error.
Yeah. And then here's a good thing that happened. I was at one of the stores stocking up, and at this time the candies introduced. The candies is doing great. We go from 7 stores to like 15, 20 stores, right?
Yeah.
Where the candy is in, and I wanted more stores. And I went to one particular store, and the store was very, very busy, very busy. And somebody dropped their drink, and the drink was everywhere. And the guy just took off, and there's 2 dudes on the counter just trying to get everybody. It's very busy. So what I do, just me being who I am, I get on my knees, and I grab some napkins and I clean it up.
Yeah.
And I clean it up and I wait because I got to get paid because I just restocked the store. And then the guy over the counter says, "Hey man," he was like, "Why did you pick that up like that?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. There was a mess and there was a need, so I just picked it up, man. I didn't want to know." He's like, "Man, I've been in this country for 9 years and I've never seen nobody do that. Not an American ever do something what you just did." Yeah, he was
Well,
serious.
thank you for that.
He
What
said,
the-
"You remind me." He said, "Me seeing you
Sir,
do that."
that's because I am
Yeah.
Mexican. No, I'm
Wow.
just kidding.
So be like, there's a Mexican
No,
before
so,
the Americans.
he's from India, right?
Okay.
He said in India, he said that's normal. That's what we do. Here in America, that's I never see that. He said in 9 years I've never seen something like that ever. He goes, "You can restock and put whatever you want, and I'm going to give you more stores because of that." He goes, "Don't."
Nice.
He said, "Don't call me to restock. You come put if it's full, double stock it. I don't care. You come. This is going to be your store from now on." Yeah, man. And just because an act of service that he saw,
Right.
right? I could have been like, "That ain't my business." No, but when I humbled myself and I got down and I got on my knees, hand and feet, dirty floor, by the way.
Right. That's a store. Everybody's
Wiped
walking in
it
and
out.
out. Yeah, I
Station.
can
Yeah.
definitely see that.
Yeah.
Wiped it and cleaned it. That dude was like and he told his other friends, because there's this network. He told his other friends, and when he told his other friends, he goes, "Oh yeah, they told me what you did at the store."
Wow.
That's how they
you're
remember
that guy.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now my reputation is, man, they all know I'm a pastor, even though they believe in the Quran.
Most of them are Muslim.
Oh, Muslim.
Today, I'm telling you this. Today, one of the stores I went to, the guy said, "Hey man, I've been looking at your Instagram stuff. You know, I like you did the baptism things. That's awesome, man. You know, we do baptism too in our religion. Do you guys ever get together like with groups?" I was like, "Yeah, we have fellowship." He said, "You know, I own the chicken place down the street. I want to sponsor your next event."
Nice.
Today,
Look at
that happened today.
Yeah.
I said, "You know what? I'll receive it in Jesus' name." Yeah, man. Allah, Jesus, no problem. Same one. Yeah, okay, whatever. Let's go.
So we're finding a lot of respect just because of the way that, well, I can't say me because I don't go with him to these places, but the way that he carries himself, they're like so intrigued by him. They're like, "You're so positive. You're always so happy." And they ask questions, you know, and that's, we actually have a member that he actually was one of the managers at a gas station, and
Muslim?
there was a long story that led him to our church, but he was raised Muslim and Catholic, and he's actually a member of our
And he
church.
became a member with us. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we have a
It's
Muslim.
just crazy.
Yeah. So anyway,
Beautiful.
so I'm just to sum things up. I'm going to tell you how El Gallo Mix, why we decided to name it El Gallo Mix, right?
Yeah.
That was going to be one of my questions. Why El Gallo Mix? How did that name come from?
So
About.
I'm gonna try to do it very quickly. And my wife's like, "You
You
always say
have
this story."
2 minutes.
Wow.
No, hombre, un minuto, te doy un minuto.
How much time do we have, Omar?
Yes.
We don't have time limits on our podcast. You
Okay.
take your time.
So-
and
Oh, man, guys,
so-
hold
I was
on.
gonna
talk to you.
say-
So you have 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
There you
Wow.
go.
Go ahead and grab your coffee and come back.
And there goes the 10 seconds. They went out the window, right?
Wow.
2
So-
minutes.
So I grew up in a home with my brother, my sister, my mom. My mom always worked 2 jobs. My dad left us when we were very, very young.
Okay.
I was like 6 years old, right? And I remember as a kid, people would knock on the door looking for my dad, and they'd always call him El Gallo. ¿Se encuentra el gallo? ¿Dónde está el gallo? Where's el gallo? So me, since I ain't seen my dad in so long, in 30 plus years, I told myself, I'm going to name this company because we needed a name. For licensing, you need a name.
Right.
I told my wife, I'm going to name it El Gallo Mix. She was like, why? Like, and I said, because that's my dad's name. That's it. That's what he was known for.
Es el apodo.
I said, and my dad was a drug dealer. I said, and although my dad was also a businessman, and all the hustle he has, I believe that I birthed that from him. Although he was doing it wrong, the man was good at it until he got caught. You know, yeah, he did it the wrong way, but he was good. I believe if he would have just shifted that around and done it another way, he would have been successful.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to name it El Gallo behind him because one day I'm going to find him. And when I'm going to find him, I'm going to say, look, man, I don't hate you. There's a company here that I named behind you because I love you. And let me tell you who Jesus is.
Wow.
That's why. That's why I named it El Gallo Mix. It's behind my dad.
Wow, that's
crazy.
powerful.
That's powerful.
That's the whole thing about it. And earlier this year, I actually reached out to my dad.
Oh, really?
I found him.
Wow.
How did
And
you
I told
find
him. So on what crazy on WhatsApp.
Well, yeah.
WhatsApp. I thought you were going to say
But I
like
thought on
DNA.
WhatsApp you have to have somebody's
So-
phone number or
so-
something like that.
Let Maribel tell you.
So yes, well, no, it wasn't on WhatsApp. It was on. It started on Facebook. So Steve was invited to preach at a conference for young men.
Yeah, for young men. New pastor. This
new
first time
pastor.
preaching.
And
First
he's
time.
like,
I'm like,
me? ¿Pa qué me quieren a mí? Yo no sé ni qué estás haciendo.
Who am I? You know?
So
Like,
yeah,
I'm the
I'm
new
like,
guy.
I'm barely learning.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he got invited, and he's like, Lord, you know, okay. So then they tell him, hey, Pastor Steve, the theme is fatherless. right?
Fatherless homes.
Fatherless homes.
Wow.
And I'm like, well,
I'm like,
that's great.
I can preach that. I mean, I grew up in that.
You're like, I do know
Yeah.
about this. I got
That's
it.
Absolutely.
my life.
I'm like, that's me. That's the story of my life. I mean, that's easy, you know?
So he was like excited because he's like, okay, I know all about this. Like, I grew up in a fatherless home. So then he's like, as he's praying, you know, the Holy Spirit tells him like, hey, you can't preach if you don't reach out to your dad.
Bro, straight up. He's like, I'm not going to utilize you until you fix it with your dad first.
So
Because you got to
he's
be a
like-
living testimony. Fix it here and I move here. So I was like, well, now I got to find this guy.
So then he comes and he tells me, and we've spoken about this in our marriage. We've been together for 13 years. We've
Yeah,
spoken
for
about
sure.
reaching out to him or whatever. And then he's like, babe, I got to find him now. Like, God told me I got to do it. So I was like, how do we find him? So
Yeah.
we try to reach out to his tia, and his
Bro.
tia's like, pues, I don't know, because he's like always has different phone numbers, so she couldn't give us any answers. So then I tried to look for him on Facebook. This guy had like 20 accounts.
Bro, literally.
Makes sense.
One was
I'm
an
like-
eagle, one was him, one
I'm
was
like,
a skull,
yes.
one was this.
As
He had like
people,
all kinds of accounts, bro.
as people his age usually do.
Because
Yeah.
they forget the password.
They
He-
forget
one
the
he had a
password.
hat
and
on.
they
I was
gotta
like, if you want to see
reactivate
his
it.
photo album, just go through all of his accounts. There's
Wow.
different pictures. Like,
So
you
I-
don't, don't go through his
That's so
pictures. Look at the
funny, bro.
accounts. Like,
So I literally
That's it.
messaged
You're fine.
all 20 accounts.
Oh wow.
Literally, like I
There
just
was like
copied
20
and
of them.
paste,
Yeah.
like copy paste. I messaged all of them. Weeks passed, weeks turned into a month, and finally I get a hit, and I'm like, oh snap! I was like, your dad responded.
You're like, we found them.
I'm like, no, he didn't.
He's like, no, he didn't. I'm like, yes, he did. And so then that's when he gave us his number, and that's when they started conversating on WhatsApp. So that's how
Yeah.
that started, and it's still a revolving door. We're still progressing
It's a
in
work
that.
in progress.
It's a
Yeah,
work
it
in
is.
progress.
It is.
For sure.
But we're there.
Yeah, we're there, man.
We've
We're
arrived.
there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Does he now know about the Gallo mix name? Or?
No, not yet. Does he?
I think my aunt told him.
Oh yes.
My aunt told him.
Yes, he does. No, yes, you did have that conversation with him.
Did I?
And he was very, yeah.
He's asking her, did
He
I?
was
mean-
he was touched by it, but he also told us that he had his own encounter with God, and
Yeah.
that he was actually attending church and
Yeah, he told me.
all of this.
He said, I'm going to church now.
that's great.
He said, so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
It was actually a very emotional at the very beginning because his dad's already in his late 60s, about to be 70.
Yeah.
So when Steve reached out to him, I think, the dad was very emotional because he's like, this is an answered prayer. You know, he has
Yeah.
3 kids. None of them have really reached out to him.
Yeah.
So he pretty much told Steve, you were literally my last hope, because I told God I didn't want to die without
Yeah, speaking
one
to
of
us.
my kids reaching out to me. And I guess pride got in the way, and he just never really reached out. So that was emotional, and that was
Yeah.
a sweet moment
Yeah,
right
man.
there. It was
Yeah,
nice.
so-
But one of the things that that Alex would always mention was like, hey, we need a podcast. We need a podcast. And for me, I was always like, man, I'm like, I sing a lot. So it's like, I'm always out. I'm kind of tired of having a
Yeah.
camera in my face. And you know, and
Oh
he's all
my
like,
gosh,
no, but
Mr.
seriously, no,
Mr.
not like that. But it's like, no,
Popular.
after a while, it
I
just
got
gets
you, I
old.
got
Like,
you.
like
Don't
you know,
worry.
you know, and it's just something that I didn't find as interesting, right? And Alex was like, no, but you have to understand, like, people want to know, like, more than just like seeing you on singing somewhere, like, and then also like
Yeah.
our company, like, yeah, that's great that you promote it online and stuff, but why don't you let people get to know you
Absolutely.
on a different level, right? And
Yes.
Alex's idea was always more like, how can we pass on what we never got taught, right? Because I did hear you guys mention the life coach, but you guys also mentioned a lot of trial and error, a lot of like
Yeah, man.
lack of having mentorship, right?
Well, truth to that's one thing I was going to say before we started talking about the other stuff, but it's hard to find people that will pour into you.
That's right.
It's difficult. Like, truth be told, in every area.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
In business, in church,
Yeah.
in every area, it's hard because, like I said, so many people tell you, hey, call me, I'm there for you. Or whatever you need, I'm there for you. But then you
You
call
have
them, they
reached.
don't answer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Voicemail up.
And
You
it's
have
like, or they reject your call. So it's really difficult. I mean, in our whole journey of let's say our church journey, it's really just, it's been Pastor Cantu, Fe Poder,
Right.
and
Yes,
Yeah.
Pastor Eddie.
and Pastor David.
David.
And then of course you guys extended a lot of your help, and then
Yeah.
Sona and all of that,
Yeah.
you know, but it's been few. It
Right.
hasn't
Yeah,
I don't
it's
have
been
a
a few.
huge list,
Right.
you know, and but like, and how we got, like, Pastor Cantu just started, you know, it was just crazy because he's like, he said what everybody says. Hey, mija, whenever you need help, you know, I can. Oh, basically, his phone call was, mija, your live streaming sucks.
Yeah, he's straight.
Wow.
No hair
Oh,
on
he's
his
very
tongue.
Straight
honest, yeah.
up, yes. He's like, mija,
It
your church live stream
sucks. What are
sucks.
y'all using? I'm like, dang, Pastor, okay.
And you're like,
I was like,
we thought we did a great
Yeah,
job.
like, that was like
Oh,
our,
No,
our
and then
peak.
Pastor Eddie probably said, do you want my help or not?
Yeah,
no, he's
pretty
like,
much.
hey, you know, this is what I do. I can help you out. So of course, I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, because
We need
everybody
it.
tells you,
Exactly.
I'm going to help you, but they don't. But he showed up.
Yeah.
And then he shows up with all of his equipment.
Yeah.
We love him, man.
Cameras, laptops, everything. And then he's like, I'm going to let you use it until you have money to buy your own. And I'm like,
Wow.
what? I don't even know this dude.
I don't even know
I
who
don't know who you
Oh,
are.
y'all didn't even know him
I had
that
just
well?
met
Like,
him.
No,
We
I met
met him at the
At the
truth
first
be
one
told, he's known my mom and my dad for years. He's
Okay,
actually
okay.
met my mom when they were really young, but he
Yeah.
never met me. He met me at Sona. The first
Yeah.
Sona was at his church.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Well, the first one we
Well,
went to.
The
Right.
One of
No,
the first.
one of the first
One of the
sonas.
first sonas that we stepped out because the first few were at our church.
Oh, okay.
We had
Oh,
a
okay.
first.
Yes.
We had
Yeah.
a few
The first-
at our church, and I think Faye Poder was the first church that we stepped out.
Oh, okay.
So that's where we connected with him.
Nice.
So he came up to us and he's like,
Yeah.
I knew your dad, I knew your mom, but that's when we met him. And literally a month later is when he was already in our church building, like doing things.
Just serving.
He's
Yeah.
the one that took the podcast to another level,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
our angles and all of that.
Yeah.
All like, I mean, of course we sow seeds into his life, but all for free.
No,
He didn't
yeah.
ask for nothing. So those kind of people are few to none. So my suggestion is when you find somebody that's willing to pour into you, grab them and honor them.
And
Like,
Honor 'em.
honor
exactly,
them.
that's exactly what I think. If you caught it on the first episode, I'm like, that's what these guys do. I was so happy to join this team because I knew they were gonna pour into me. They were gonna pour, and all my kids take lessons from Omar. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, no, let's stick with Omar because I know he's gonna pour into these guys. Like he always would go above and
And beyond.
beyond. But not only that, like he wasn't ever like, hey, no, go figure it
Go
out
do
on
your
your
own
own,
thing.
you know.
Yeah.
And Alex is the same.
Yeah.
And that's
And
what I really
This
enjoy.
is why me and Alex are best
working.
friends. When we met, like obviously he's more into like the videographer stuff. I'm a musician, singer, and I'm trying to do like social media stuff. And we would always be like, man, I met this person that we think is gonna be a big blessing for us. It's gonna help us out. And then we're like, hey, we want to reach out to you. Can we go have lunch? It's on us. We'll take you wherever. Just because we just are trying to just absorb everything. We're like
Yes.
sponges,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're these younger people that we're just trying. That we assume that
Yeah.
when we see people that have been doing this way longer than we have, that they kind of
They're
see
gonna
us and
be-
say, man, this is just a younger me.
Yes.
Let me pour into them, right?
Yes.
But on the contrary, they see us and they're like, uh-oh, that's potential. And if I help,
Me va a robar mis ideas.
that's my clients. And if I give them any kind of tip, like that's my time, which means I deserve more money, or I need some
I
kind of
deserve to be,
income. Yeah, I need to be
compensated.
compensated in some way or
Yes.
form. And for me, like I was always that kid that was like, especially me, like I feel like I'm a late bloomer as far as to like anything that has to do with music, social media, even like just videography, taking pictures. Like I'm the new guy, right? And I'm so hungry and I'm asking all these questions, and I kept noticing the letdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hit
Yeah.
you back up. I'll give you a call. And it doesn't happen. And eventually I just started realizing, man, I see that people don't want to help. I'm going to go fail and figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
But now that I have gained knowledge on things, I am literally trying to be the person that I did not have.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
You
yeah.
know, and I think
awesome.
that's important because, like, you know, first of all, like for me, I'm first generation, like here in the United States, right?
Yeah.
My parents
Yeah.
are both from Mexico. They came here, no education,
Yep.
nothing,
Same.
and
Yeah.
we're all learning as we go. You know, where I
Yeah.
have other friends that got family that they've been doing all kinds of stuff, and we're like, what is that? I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
Welcome to the part of growth, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, it does take different people to help you continue to
Yes. It
elevate.
It does.
For
It
sure.
really
So
does.
I'm gonna
You
say
can't
this,
do it
man.
alone.
Look, you can apply this to church. You can apply this to business. I say this a lot at my church. It doesn't matter how you come in. It's how you leave.
Yeah.
When you come into a podcast, it doesn't matter how you start it. It's how you end it. You can come to a business. It doesn't matter how you start the business. How do you end the business? Your walk with God. It doesn't matter how you come to God. It's how you leave.
Yeah.
So that is essential. That is
Yeah.
essential. There's that word again.
That's
There it is.
essential. It's essential.
But
It's
it's okay. It's crucial, man, because it's if you have a mindset on, you know, that right there tells you that it's okay to fail. It's okay to do things wrong. It's okay to be a late bloomer. But at the end, what was the knowledge from it? What did you gain? What did you learn? And how are you moving now?
Right.
And
also-
now it's
go ahead.
beautiful that what you learned, now you're willing to give.
Absolutely.
Send it on.
Yeah.
And also like even teaching like people that are younger, like new at this, like enjoying the process, right? Like
I love that,
I
yes.
love looking back and saying, man, I remember when I would go sing somewhere and I wanted it to sound amazing, and I'd hire the 2 guitar players, 2 piano players,
Yeah.
a bass player, a drummer,
Yeah.
3 trumpet players, 6 singers, and we'd show up there and they're like, thank you guys for bringing this. This was amazing. We've never had this at our church. Here's $100 for everybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, Who wants to go to Jack in the Box and get 2 tacos for $1? You know,
Dios manda dinero.
yeah, pretty much.
Todo cambió.
Pero todo cambió. Praise God. No, but I remember those days, and it's like it's part of the process, right? And like now that you are in a different place, now that you're seeing different types of blessings, you can definitely look back and say, man, how big is this, right? Like maybe I'm not even where I want to be yet, but I'm definitely not where I was yesterday, right?
Absolutely.
Not competing with anybody else, not looking left and right, but just focusing on being a better me every day.
Small improvements make big changes.
For sure.
What was that?
Small improvements make big changes.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, it's true. It's just working on yourself. It's like what you said. Don't let somebody else's success intimidate you. Let it inspire you. And yeah, it's like we can learn from everybody. We can teach. And then that situation, that happens to a lot of people, right?
Right.
But then when you're in a situation where you're hiring, or you're in a situation where you are utilizing somebody's talent, then we don't do that, right? Then we honor, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, I am in a family of ministers, so I've heard that story a lot.
You're like
man, I just gave $1,000 message and got $5. Yeah. So
And it
it's
happens.
like,
It happens.
of course it happens. So, you know, and you just kind of have to move forward, you know?
Roll with it.
Right.
Roll with
and you
it.
know, it's funny, like, before you guys got here, we were talking about how we felt that you guys were going to be like perfect for this conversation, right?
Yeah.
One of the first things that we discussed when we started the Creative Minds podcast is like, hey, we want to bring different creatives, whatever it is that they're doing. They don't have to be musicians. They don't got to be videographers. Whatever it is that they love and they're passionate about, there obviously's got to be some type of creativity involved in that, right?
Yes.
And so we were like, we need to bring different guests. But then we were like, but man, we feel like a podcast should be informational. A podcast should have some type of like, you know, knowledge that people can take back home and apply to their daily lives, right?
Yep.
And so, like, I think that's the church in us, right? We're just like, how are we gonna preach this sermon? We're just like, no, like,
What are my takeaway points?
yeah, what are my takeaway points? Yeah, pretty much. And it's like when we were thinking about like the balanced life, right? We were like, man, we need to have somebody that comes here that can really just say, I do X, Y, and Z. Oh, and by the way, I still come home to my family. I still spend time with my children. And so if you could summarize just something short and sweet for the people that are watching this and kind of just wrap up your takeaway points about this topic, right? About the work-life balance, you know, and how important that is for you guys as entrepreneurs, as creatives, as pastors, as counselors. What words would you share with these people?
I'll share one point. I said this tonight and I'll say it again. At my church, this is one of my takeaway points I said, and since we're talking about failing, sometimes in life you have to fail to get where you want to get, right? But the problem is that we get stuck. The problem is with people who get stuck is that they only focus on that one thing that took them down and the one thing they failed on, and they forget about all the other good things that they did. So my message is this: don't let your past mistakes rob you from your future victories.
That's good.
Because the mistakes in the past are always going to be there, but it's your choice to move.
That's
Forward.
Yep.
You have to move. You cannot stay, because your past mistakes will always going to come back to haunt you.
Yes.
It's going to come back and get you. But, you know, don't stay in that spot. Move. Because what are they doing? They're robbing. They're stealing your victories, because you could be doing something else, but you're stuck on the what if. Right? Instead of asking the why.
Right.
So
And one thing that we always reflect on is the fact that when we started our business, a lot of people started businesses. You know, when pandemic hit, everybody was starting businesses because that's the only way that we could make money. A lot of those businesses died out. You know, some of them because they went back to their day jobs, but others because they just didn't. So a lot of times we get asked this question: what made the difference in you guys? You know, because you're still going. You know, 2020 is long gone. We're 2023 and you guys are still going strong.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was what you just said, is that we didn't allow all those doors that were closed on our face to discourage us, but to inspire us. We didn't give up. We kept going. We kept knocking doors. And so just be persistent, you know, be persistent,
Absolutely.
be consistent. Don't give up. If it's in you, you know, it's like there's a slogan right here: if you can dream it, you can do it, right? But a lot of us get stuck in the dreaming, right? And we don't get to the doing. Yep. And that's the thing. Yes, if you can dream it, you can do it, but don't get stuck in the dream, because the dream is just a dream. You have to put it to action.
Even the word of God,
talks about
covers
it.
Yeah, talks about it. Faith without works
Is not
dead.
It's dead.
It's dead. It dies.
So you can have faith in wanting to bring something forth to life, but you just can't leave it there. You have to actually work at it.
Yeah.
You've got to do.
Yeah.
You've got to do.
You got to put action
and not
to
be
it.
scared to fail. I know
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest things that he teaches. I say because he helps all of us.
Yes.
Like, don't be scared to fail.
Well, it's crazy because I do I do piano lessons and vocal
Lessons.
lessons,
Yeah.
and so I have a lot of kids that come to me and they're like, I'm averaging about 15 students a week and
It's
stuff
awesome.
like that. And one of the things that like they struggle with the most is not always like, are they capable of reaching a note?
Yes.
It's really like, are you confident enough
Yes,
I've
in
met-
yourself
yes.
to see yourself succeed while doing that live at a worship service,
And
or wherever it is that they're singing at.
Yeah.
And that's so scary because it's like, man, it really is sometimes about just inspiring yourself
Yeah.
to say, hey, you know what? Even if I hit the wrong note here at rehearsal,
I tried.
I'm trying
Yes.
and I'm teaching myself that's how you don't do it.
Right.
Now
Yes.
let's figure out how to actually properly do this,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And so, for us, we're just super grateful to have you guys here today. We want to thank you
appreciate that.
guys. It's been a blessing to hear everything you guys
Yeah.
are doing. I'm so glad everything's working out for you
Absolutely.
guys. But before we let you guys go, can you guys do me a favor? Let everybody know where can they follow you guys. Also, if you guys have any questions that maybe one or the other, the husband or the wife, left you guys super impressed on something they said, do not hesitate. Leave it
Yeah,
in the
for sure.
comments.
Yes.
Ask a question. Send us a DM. Whatever it is that, however you feel comfortable, connect with us, and we'll definitely make sure we can get these questions
Absolutely.
out to you guys.
So El Gallo Mix, we're in over, I think, 100 convenience stores now to the date.
Whoop, whoop.
Huntsville, Houston, Baytown, Austin.
That's awesome.
But if you are from another state and you want to order, www.elgallomix.com.
We have a website.
We have a website. We do promo codes all the time. We're giving stuff away all the time. Just look out for the website. Also, if you need a convenience store, hit us up on our Instagram or our Facebook page, El Gallo Mix, and we communicate through those avenues as
We're
well.
on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Yeah, all that.
Nice.
All of the above.
Also, and I'm going to say this, if you're in the area of South Houston and you need a church, Iglesia Sin Límites, we're open. We're bilingual.
Yes.
I mean, if you need a place to worship, we're open. If you're here in this area, I know we have Inspire and here by Woodward,
For sure.
by Channelview.
Service times?
So our service times are Thursdays at
A ver,
7
el pastor sí lo sabe.
and then Sundays at 1 p.m. Right.
Yes.
But we're here, man. We're just a community who loves God and wants to see transformation.
Our pages on Facebook and Instagram for the church is Iglesia Sin Límites Houston.
Yep.
Okay.
And then for the church is Radio Shalom KJJG.
Right. And we have a podcast every Friday at 9 a.m.
What
Yes.
about the counseling? I think that's the last
Yeah.
thing we need to touch.
Yes. So the counseling, that's just something that we offer. So we do offer marriage counseling. I do children counseling. I do all kinds of counseling. So we do
Yeah.
offer that. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to any avenue.
To any
actually.
avenue, we'll answer.
In El Gallo Mix or in the church, we can make
And
that
we say
happen.
that because every day we're wearing all the hats. Earlier, I was a pastor. This morning, I was the El Gallo Mix. And then during the afternoon, I had 2 calls from 2 members that needed counseling on the side. As I'm driving, I'm talking to them. So it don't matter.
Yeah.
We'll answer it and we'll just knock it out.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
All day, every day. I think, one thing that you asked, and just to close, I don't want to end without just find what works for you, a balance that works for you. What works for us might not work for you. But one thing I will say, if you are married and you have children, your family comes first.
Absolutely.
Your house comes first.
That's your number one ministry.
That's
Yep.
your number one
Yep.
ministry is your wife and your children. Because if everything else succeeds, but your home fails, you really don't succeed.
Yep.
So just, your house is first. And I always we tell our congregation that all the time. And sometimes, trust me, as pastors, sometimes it's like, oh, should I already told them that? But we always tell them your family comes first. If you can't make it because your son's sick, we'll figure it out. Your family comes first because we put our family first,
Yep.
and
Right.
that's just the way it is. We go on vacation, we go on a week vacation, and if we figure it out, but family comes first. And then what feeds you, right? All of us have something that feeds us,
Right.
that doesn't pull from us, but feeds us. For me, that's just my time with the Lord by myself. That feeds me reading the word, me doing a devotional, whatever it is that feeds me, going to the gym feeds me? Like stuff that doesn't pull from you but feeds you. So ask yourself that. What feeds my soul? What feeds my heart, my spirit? And make sure that you prioritize that. So family and what feeds you. And then the rest kind of just comes, because when your family's taken care of, your home, when you as a person is taking care of your spirit, your heart, your soul, what you do for a living is not going to seem like work, because you're full.
Everything's
You're
aligning.
good. Everything's flowing. So I think that's one of the secrets to not being overwhelmed.
Yep.
That's great.
But we appreciate you guys having us.
Yeah, it was fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Of course.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate
We
it.
appreciate having
If
you
you
guys.
like us, que nos inviten otra vez.
Put it in the comments. Well, thank you guys for being with us
Yes.
today. We appreciate having
Of
you
course.
guys.
Thank you
And
guys.
thank you guys for watching. Y'all have a great one.
Lessons.
Bye.